Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Blah, blah. Yep, okay. We should be good by now. This means I should be able to hear myself now. Blah. Okay, can I hear myself? Now that works. Okay, we're good. Wow. No idea what happened there. But yeah, everything should be good by now. So apparently I muted my microphone and I don't remember doing it. Oh well. After all that, I should have been ready 15-20 minutes ago. I was not ready. And then I spent the last, I don't know how long, trying to figure out why things were not working. But it works now. Anyway, all that being said, hi. uh, okay, now you behave. Anyway, so yeah, so tonight, um, so for those that missed it last week, I was not able to do my normal stream on Tuesday because well, TLDR, if I have to disappear for the weekend because of something else, for example, this past weekend I was helping my LGS at their booth at Fan Expo in Toronto. That usually means I end up having to work Monday overnight and Tuesday overnight. And so on trying to stream on Tuesday evening because I try to start my stream for 6 o'clock. It's now roughly 20 after 6. No idea what happened, but okay. Um, I'm not going to be able to do it on Tuesday if I have to work Monday night and Tuesday night. So what that means is I don't have the because I cannot reasonably do Monday overnight, a stream on Tuesday, and make it to work in a reasonable amount of time for Tuesday night. I end up shifting over to Wednesday. And sometimes the Wednesday stream has to be cut a bit short, but I make it. So, Scourge last week was on Wednesday. And so tonight, now that all the sets, all of the regular, we have gone through standard sets, and the sets from before standard even existed. Now that that's all done, I'm going to go through some of these oddball sets, some of these sets that nobody nobody remembers well, I shouldn't say nobody remembers. There are 5 specific sets in question that we're looking at. Portal, uh, Portal's Second Age, Portal Three Kingdoms, Starter, I think it's called Starter 1999 and Starter 2000. These are 5 sets that were aimed towards a newer player base. They basically took Magic and they simplified what they could. Magic has a reputation, and even back then had a reputation for being a complicated game, which was understandable. You know, um, to do a quick search, let's see here. You came out in 1997, so let's just do a quick search. Dates less than 1998. 2,687 cards. So let's just say 2,700 cards. And those 2,700 cards also had a lot of rules. And back then, the rules were less clear than they are nowadays. We are lucky, people that play and are learning the game now are lucky that we have a relatively, I don't know if this is the best word for it, but a relatively clean structure to work with. And what I mean by clean is that you if you have 2 cards that are trying to interact with each other, you can look at the rules and you can look at the cards and you can figure out how the cards interact. And it may take some effort. The Magic Comprehensive Rules is, as its name implies, very comprehensive and lays out specifically exactly how things work. For example, you go to cast a spell. You don't just cast a spell. You declare what spell you are trying to cast. And the first thing that happens is it goes on the stack. Then you take a look at what's then they take a look at how you plan on casting that spell. Does it have modes? Does it have targets? Does it have does it have does it have kicker? Does it have multi-kicker? Does it, are you casting it with flashback? Are you the various ways that you can try to cast the spell, regardless of any other text on the card. So you're not even looking at targets and stuff like that yet. Well, if it has modes, you have to declare what mode you're looking at. If it has an X in its cost, you're going to need to figure out what you're going to want X to be. Stuff like that. What is your ideal X? So on and so forth. Then you got to take a look at things like targets, how many targets do I need to choose? What targets am I choosing? Um, if it has, then if there's something being distributed, let's say, maybe damage, maybe counters, that's got to be split accordingly. Um, and obviously you're going to choose the targets before you choose what gets what. So if you're putting, counters on, if you're distributing 3+1+1 counters, on any number of target creatures, you have to choose, well, how many creatures am I targeting and which creatures are getting how many, what counters. Which creatures are getting how many counters. And your next step after that would be things like determining the cost and then paying the cost. And then the spell does its thing, and as a general rule, the last piece of a spell's resolution is putting the card into the graveyard. If it's being cast via an effect like Flashback, instead of going to the graveyard, it's going to get exiled. This is true whether or not the spell resolves, if it would get returned back to your hand, etc., etc., etc. Oh no, already? Son of a biscuit. You are already giving me issues. I might already have to reboot my computer. So. But that's if you're looking at the comprehensive rules. Well, they try to simplify things when they looked at they try to simplify things when they came out with Portal. And Portal said, instead of having all these various card types, what can we trim this down to? Certain abilities still had to exist. I think flying and trample were still a thing. But I think most other things were cut out. I don't even think First Strike existed. Banding, I'm pretty sure, was kicked out. Because banding was actually relatively complicated. But, and stuff that would be an activated ability would have wording like what Stern Marshal here says. On your turn, before you attack, you may tap Stern Marshal to whatever the effect was. And cards that involve power and toughness had little symbols to indicate we're talking about power and toughness. So the sword obviously was the creature's attack, the shield was the defense, etc., etc. It took till like 2005, and this came out in 1997. So for like 8 years, these were not legal in tournament play unless you were already playing, like unless the card already existed and it was just a reprint. So the first 8 years of their existence, not only was it a version of the game that was aimed towards um, a group of people to learn the game, but then have to change some of what they learned because intercepted became, you go to the actual game and intercept doesn't exist, it's blocking and stuff like that. And then instants and enchantments and interrupts at that point, and artifacts and all this other all this other stuff. Hey, you're going like the only thing that were like permanent, you had lands and you had creatures. There were no non-creature effects that stuck around. So enchantments and artifacts would complete, like, yeah, this be like, oh, okay, this game is easy, this game is simple. Like, imagine being handed like the tutorial for how to play a game, and then you go to play the actual game, and half of what you learned or half of what you thought you knew was going to get thrown completely out the window because it doesn't work that way. So yeah, it was we lived in interesting times at that point. And they did 5 sets like this. Some of them were thematically very interesting, and others were just, here's some new cards here's some cards for new players to deal with. No, go away. So, let's start at the beginning. Valorous Charge. White creatures get +2/+0 till end of turn. This is a card I could have seen myself putting into my mono white common stack, except this was not common. And it only has the one printing. The problem is my mono white common stack, most of the cards around this cost are better than this. Glorious Charge, for example. Let's see if I can find you here. Oh, there we are. Guardian's Pledge. White creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. You know, let's just switch down the visual spoiler. Guardian's Pledge. Righteous Charge. Creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Most of the effects that give like +2 give at least +2/+1. And if they don't give +2 power, they're either putting counters on stuff or they're pumpable or something. So Valor's Charge would not quite make the cut. But if you are looking at something similar, if you do want something along the lines of this effect, like if you're building a deck similar to what I did here, and you're building with uncommons, maybe you might end up having to play it. But I would look to see if there's something like Guardian's Pledge, or because 3 mana +2/+2 to your team is quite a bit. I would check for something like that first. Stern Marshal, 3 mana 2/2. Tap to give the creature +2/+2 till end of turn. Activate only during your turn before attackers are declared. A lot of these effects that say, activate only during your turn before attackers are declared, or on your turn before you attack, dot dot dot. A lot of these, you're going to find better versions of it elsewhere. To be fair, this is still not bad. He is giving his power and toughness to another creature. Um, and so, technically, according to the rules, the way the game actually works, combat has beginning of combat, declare attackers, declare blockers, combat damage, end of combat. You can activate this during beginning of combat because don't forget, you're going to see some cards that have triggers like at the beginning of combat, do a thing. Stern Marshal, you can activate during that time slot before you actually declare what you're attacking with. Warrior's Charge. Again, this is a this is a common that if I mix and matching colors, I might consider. But the deck that this would have gone in was mono white. And because it's mono white, this is just not good enough. And relevantly, I can look at as 3 mana, do this thing. I don't have to care about 1 white plus 2 versus 2 white plus 1. That doesn't matter when you're playing monocolored. If I'm playing 2 or 3 colors, sure, I might consider an effect like this because this is easier to cast. Defined Stand. So, 2 mana. Cast only during the declare attacker step, and only if you've been attacked this step. So in other words, if somebody's attacking you, before you declare blocks, you play, that's the time slot you play this card. Target creature gets +1/+3 till end of turn, untap that creature. I'm pretty sure there's +1/+3 until end. Oh, untap. ID equal white. For that exactly, Alarum is better because it's target non-attacking creature. Or Rally to Battle gets all of them. Do we get any more? Yes. Acrobatic Leap. +1/+3 and flying till end of turn. Untap it. Escape from Ortank. Same thing. Wings of the Cosmos. So you have 3 cards that do the exact same thing as Defiant Stand, but more, i.e. giving flying, for 1 mana less. So if you need this effect, play Acrobatic Leap, Wings of the Cosmos, Escape from Orthanc first. P.S. They're all commons. If you still need more, Alarum counts. Alarum will do the same. Is pretty close, because especially if you're doing like combo shenanigans. Yeah. If you really, really need to play Defiant Stand, that means you really, really need the untap during combat effect. Renewing Dawn. For each mountain your opponent has in play, you gain 2 life. Turning all lands into mountains is trivial. You add red, you skew your mana base towards the other colors, and you play Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon, and similar effects. I do find it interesting they decided to go for each mountain your opponent has in play to make it target and not each opponent. Not saying right, I'm not saying wrong. I guess because they assumed this would be 1v1, but a lot of 1v1 cards did become target player and some of them did become each. So I guess with the Portal sets they assumed 1v1 and went accordingly. But yeah, Renewing Dawn, later in the game, this can be a lot of life. And it's actually really easy for this to be, even if you cast this at the earliest possible opportunity. It's not unusual for this to be like 6 life. At which point the question is, why are you gaining life? And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. There are reasons for it. But why are you gaining life? Well, I'm gaining life because I want to turn on this or that. Or keep in mind, life gain, you never want to gain life just to gain life. If you're gaining life, and this is generally true with stuff like life gain, and less true with other things that exist in the game, but the number one thing you want to be looking at is life gain. You never want to be gaining life just to gain life. You want to be gaining life for a reason. What is that reason? Is that reason because you are positive that you die next turn unless you gain an exorbitant amount of life? And this is step 1. Is which if that extra turn is basically I should be able to win next turn, then that actually does make a difference. This is basically like casting Time Walk in that perspective. It's buying you an extra turn. If it's not, why are you gaining life? I am gaining life because I have a card like Book of Wrath, which is a card that I personally like. And I like to point out to people who are, let's go with this one, who want to be able to, like, bulk draw a bunch of cards. And the nice thing about Book of Wrath is there's no tap in its activation cost. It looks expensive, and initially up front it is. 6 mana is quite an investment. Pardon me. However, after that, it's 2 mana and 2 life to draw an additional card. Have I got 4 spare mana floating around? Can I spare an extra 4 life? I'll draw 2 extra cards. This is a little bit like the One Ring, in a manner of speaking. The difference with, well, the One Ring has got two major differences. One, it also prevents people from killing you by basically giving you protection from everything until your next turn. And two, it pings you every turn. This pings you when you use it. I mean, yes, the One Ring has got other things going on with it, but you know, 4 and tap to draw a bunch of cards, but you're taking increasingly more damage every following turn. And even if you decide not to draw cards on a given turn, you're still going to be getting burned. If you want more control over it, and I'm by no means saying the One Ring is bad. If you want more fine control over it, Book of Rest might be a little more what you're looking for. But if you look at Renewing Dawn and your opponent's got like, you know, let's say 5 mountains in play, you go, cool, I'm going to gain 10 life. That gives me the ability to draw 5 extra cards. Or if you cast the One Ring, that extra, 10 life can get you 1 card this turn, 2 cards the next turn, 3 cards the following turn, for the one after that. It will net you more cards in long term. I will also point out that the One Ring, because it uses counters, those can be proliferated, and your opponent can kill you that way. I'm surprised I don't see anybody doing that. But, like I said, if you are gaining life, have a reason for gaining life. Don't just gain life for the sake of gaining life. If it's attached to an efficient body anyway, you might as well, etc. Sacred Knight. 4 mana for a 3/2. This was a card where they wanted to introduce part of the idea of protection from a color. Because protection does 4 specific things. It cannot be dealt damage by a source of the appropriate type. It cannot be enchanted or equipped, neither of which were things in the Portal set, so that's fine. It can't be blocked by them, and it can't be targeted by them. So, in Portal, there's no enchantments and equipment didn't exist yet. So you're looking at damage, blocking, and targeting. So you've already got one of 3 possible options for protection handled in Sacred Knight. It is a little on the weak side, but to be fair, I tend to find a lot of the time when they're costing cards like this, they want to make it as easy to cast as possible. I think if this was 2 white plus 1, more people would be willing to play it. But again, I've mentioned this before in the past. Often, you can replace 2 colorless mana with 1 colored mana in the cost. And it'll be about right. Based on that, make this 2 white plus 1. You get a 3/2 that cannot be blocked by black or red creatures. Back then, that would have been great. but they erred on the side of making it easier to put into more decks, which is fine. It's a choice. Also, Portal, I don't believe had anything along the lines of dual lands, lands that could tap for more than one color, or anything else that could produce more than one color. I think your closest might have been something along the lines of Wood Elves that could fetch a basic land. But as for stuff that could generate more than one color of mana, yeah, not a thing. You were playing with basic lands and stuff like this. So, in a situation like that, Sacred Knight, it made sense, but yeah, I'm less fond of it. And in a larger in a larger format like Commander, pass. Keen-Eyed Archers, on the other hand, 3 mana for a 2/2 with reach. At common, this was okay. Again, this would be replaced with like Longbow Archers. You know, 2 white for a 2/2 with first strike and reach. Again, replacing the 2 colorless mana with white mana. Bump this up in rarity, you also give it first strike. But if you're looking at stuff with reach in white, if you're looking at common specifically, this is fine. However, you're also generally going to want a creature with flying instead. And by now, 1 white, 2 other for 2/2 with flying. Easy, and you should get some extra abilities added on to that, even at common these days. But if you don't want to play with flying creatures, reach is your next best option, and it's a bit harder to find creatures with reach in white than with creatures with flying. So this may be a consideration if you're taking that route. Spiritual Guardian. 5 mana for a 3/4. Comes into play, gain 4 life. Um, better than it initially, better than the printed text, because the printed text basically wants you to cast it from your hand. Although technically speaking, it doesn't say that you cast it. So getting it in play from your hand by other means is fair game. Um, Elvish Piper, for example. But when they turn around and went to the Oracle text, it's like, yeah, no. When this enters, you gain 4 life. What? If you're looking for creatures to continually flicker to gain life, this is not a bad starting point. This is a rare. You're probably better off with something like Ancestors Chosen. But this will give you 4 life every turn. I think you can get 5 on a body. 5 or 6 on a body. Or you can come with some cards like Ancestors Chosen that will be variable. This is 1 life for each card in your graveyard. Doesn't say creature card, just card. And back in the day, way back in the day, this used to see some play in, I want to say dredge decks, back when dredge decks actually regularly used the dredge mechanic and weren't doing, like, this is long before Prize Amalgam even existed. And you would reanimate this against, let's say, a mono red deck, and you got like 30 cards in your graveyard, so suddenly you gain 30 life, and your opponent's going, well, crap. Plus, you have a 4/4 first strike, which will probably kill their biggest creature. So, if you're looking for something to gain a consistent, healthy amount of life, like you're going to gain this amount or that amount every time, Spiritual Guardian is fine. 4 life, 3/4 body, it's fine. I would prefer this to have an extra point of power, but it's okay. Um, at this cost, I would expect a 4/4 lifelink. Actually, at rare, I would probably expect a 5/5 lifelink these days with some other stuff going on. But at that age, I would expect a 4/4 lifelink. But Spiritual Guardian from Portal, you didn't have lifelink. It was coming to play abilities. And you can manipulate this a lot easier than you can lifelink. Flicker shenanigans and sack and reanimate and everything else. So, if you're looking to consistently gain life and you've got some kind of flicker package going on, try that. Ardent Militia. 5 mana for 2/5 vigilance. I appreciate the fact that at least one of the two numbers matches up with its mana cost. Got reprinted shortly thereafter in Weatherlight. So, see what we said about it during Weatherlight. If it came up then. Not saying it didn't. But, this is basically a 3/4 vigilance. I think that actually feels about right for costing it back then. Come to think about it, because I feel like vigilance on a lower rarity card is worth like 1 to 2 mana. Depends on the card, depends on the ability. Nowadays, this should be probably like, I could probably see a 4/4 vigilance at common for this. Because, you still get Sarah Angel at uncommon, which is 4/4 flying vigilance. I could see a 3/4 or possibly a 4/4 vigilance for this cost at common. At uncommon for sure. Definitely for sure. Go away. I might actually have to restart the computer soon. I'll try and get through white quickly and see what happens. Foot Soldiers. A 2/4 for 4 mana. Pretty bog standard. Even if you're playing a vanilla deck, I would expect these days you should be able to get at least a 3/4. You might be able to even swing a 4/4 by now. You know what? Is vanilla ID equal white? Mana value equal 4 mana 3. Toughness greater than 3. What can we do? A 2/5, which is better. A 1/5, just. Oh! You can get there's 2 1/7s and 2 2/5s, either of which I would consider better than the 2/4. Because the 1/7 will just absorb anything. Like, stuff will just run into it and get blocked. Chances are, if it's bigger than 6, if it's bigger than 6 power, it probably has something else going on. But foot soldiers, eh. I see 4 other cards I would play before foot soldiers. Charging paladin. If you have ways, I think I've mentioned this before because this was in Exodus as well. At common, I might add. If you've got a way to get more than one attack step, enjoy playing this, and especially if you've got like a toughness matters stack. You know, because suddenly this would attack as a 2/5, which means it does 5 damage. Or, oh no, I got another attack step. Okay, now it's a 2/8. So it's going to deal 8 damage, etc., etc. Like if you get like 3 attack steps with this thing, I think that well, no, 3 attack steps will bring somebody down from 20 for sure if you are dealing damage based on toughness. Because it'll be 5, 8, and 11, which would be 24. Starlight, again, consider this like Renewing Dawn. Except against black. The difference here is A, you gain more life. B, it's easier for them to have more creatures than red is going to have mountains. Because with one mountain, you can cast like 1 creature a turn, in theory, if they're 1-drops. But you still only have 1 mountain. With 1 swamp, you cast 1 creature a turn. After 3 turns, you've got 3 creatures. Plus, black, as I've mentioned in the past, is a highly popular color for Commander. If that's 1 swamp got 3 creatures for me, Starlight gains 9 life. Never mind all the crazy shenanigans, like anything remotely along the lines of raise the alarm type cards or whatever. I guess Sengir Autocrat is the first one I can think of that would do that in black. Never mind that sort of thing. It's just so easy to produce. Like, what happens if you got 2 mana? Okay, I probably end up with 4 creatures. Well, that's 12 life. So, Starlight, honestly, I would play, if I'm looking to gain life, I would definitely play Starlight before Renewing Dawn. But yeah, some of these are fine. Let's just go quickly through the rest of these. Border Guard, you're looking at 1 mana less than Foot Soldiers for 1 less power. Play Border Guard, really, play Border Guard over Foot Soldiers. You're basically averaging to a 2/3 versus, a 2/3 for 3 is a better rate than a 3/3 for 4. Starlit Angel, I really wish they had broken down and made her a 4/4. 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 4 I really wish they had gone one more power or one more toughness. You know, give people a reason to play this over Sarah Angel. Make her a 3/5. Make her a 3/5 flyer and actually have people have an interest in playing this card. Apart from the fact of, Rebecca Gay art, because Rebecca Gay's got some great art. Um, yeah, Starlit Angel. It's again the big uh, the big thing you're going to be comparing it to, and I cannot think of the terminology I want for that. Um, I was thinking landmark. Landmark's the wrong word, but the big thing you want to be comparing it to would be like Sarah Angel, and the exact same cost. You get an extra point of power, and you get vigilance. Just play her instead of Starlight Angel. Starlight Angel, you play when you're like stuck and you don't have other options. Steadfastness. I like this card, especially if you're doing the Toughness Matters deck, which, yeah, anything that cares about pumping toughness, obviously you're going to be looking at Toughness Matters. But even without something like that, like, this can save, like, if something's going, like Storm's Wrath sort of thing, which is like 4 damage to each creature. Just being able to spend 2 mana. Oh no, that's not going to quite work. Because this is a sorcery. You'd have to find a way to play this as an instant, which probably means you're looking at playing with like Teferi or something else that says, hey, by the way, play as an instant. Play stuff as, or Leyline of, Leyline of Anticipation, I think it is. Um, what the heck were you called? No, Leyline of Anticipation is the only card I can think of that's doing what I'm thinking of. I don't think mono white has an option. Anyway. No, there's at least one. There's at least one. It's a land, I think, that lets you do it. Anyway. If you can find a way to pull this off at instant speed, this can save a lot of creatures. As a sorcery, this is... you throw this in a Toughness Matters deck, like during the Siege Tower or whatever, and you basically look at it as like almost like a half price overrun. Seasoned Marshal, 4 mana for a 2/2, which is fine. And she got reprinted in Urza Saga, also with a woman on the art, which I think is cool. And then in 7th edition, they went to an old man. It's like, boring. When she attacks, you may tap target creature. Oh my god. You want this in a deck that involves attack triggers. I think it's Ishin or something like that. I'm sure I'm spelling it right. Wrong. Ishin. If a creature attacking causes the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. Yeah, that's a triggered ability. This is a triggered ability because triggered abilities use when, whenever, or at. So, yeah, you throw this in Ishin deck, and she attacks, and you get to tap 2 creatures every time. Play with like 2 or 3 creatures like that, and you basically are going to say, hey, by the way, I'm getting through for damage. Deal with it. I might as well try and zip through the rest of these, sure. Um, Fleet-footed Monk. My god, this thing is going to be silly. 2 mana for a 1/1, which sounds horrible, but cannot be blocked by big creatures. Anything that's power 2 or greater is not blocking it. 2 or greater. This is only a 1/1. Anything a little bit bigger cannot block it. Like, imagine having a deck full of cards like this, like even in Pauper, for example, and throw like auras on it to, your typical, um, your typical hexproof kind of deck with like Glade Cover Scout and whatever. Imagine this. Imagine doing it in white and starting off with these, and it's like, yeah, I don't care. Cool, nice Tolarian Terror you got. I'm getting through past it. Wait, what? I'm getting through past it. You're not blocking me. But yeah, there there are decks that if you're looking to build a deck around unblockable, which I am, but mine is Simic. Um, haven't started on a actual list for it yet. As you can tell, it's sitting here going, I'm lonely. Oh yeah, cool. No, you are done. Have I updated this? What if I... Golgari. That one goes. Hi, Ashley. I think I've seen you, I think I've seen your name pop up. I'm good. I will warn you ahead of time if you're asking if I have any interest in getting like any work done. Um, I generally can't afford anything like that. I seem to have a lot of names, following me and liking me and whatever on X or Blue Sky, and then I'm finding a lot of VTubers lately. And I take a look at their profiles, and it's like, oh yeah, I've done art for this person, this person, this person, this person, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to afford any of their rates. Even if their rates are reasonable, I'm not going to be able to do anything like that. Especially right now, I have like, way too much money I owe on utilities right now. So, um, I, I apologize if I'm like, if I'm jumping the gun. It's just, I've had more than a few people going, "Hey, by the way, do you want me to do some work for you?" I'm like, um, I'd like to. You might want to try someone else. Uh, But I figured I should at least warn you ahead of time in case you try asking me, hey, by the way, do you want? If you weren't going to ask, I apologize. Unless it was, or if it's something that happened to come up in conversation and you were going to ask them, it's like, okay. But yeah. So do you play any of these games or? I can't agree. Also, what made you decide to follow me on X? I think might be the other question I'm asking. Man, I look at Devoted Hero and I'm like, for cards that was like, it took us forever to actually get a 1/2 in white in a set that wasn't like Portal or Starter, that didn't have other abilities. Excuse you. Color equal white. Uh, yeah. Volunteer Militia was Portal's Second Age and Portal 3 Kingdoms. Devoted Hero was Portal and Starter 99. Squire was 2 mana. Sanctuary Cat, we only have the one in, like, for cards that came in a normal set, it took us to Dark Ascension to get to a 1/2. Whereas you could get, whereas we had Savannah Lions, which was originally a rare way back in the day, and is now a common, which was a 2/1. I just followed X. Um, why do I get the feeling Ashley is a bot? Especially with a username that ends in, like, whatever plus, like, a small number after it. But yeah, Devoted Hero, basically we had 3 cards that were that. Devoted Hero, Devoted Hero and Volunteer Militia, which only got printed in the Portal and Starter sets, and then Sanctuary Cat and Dark Ascension. Whereas if we wanted that in green, Train Jackal in Portal 3 Kingdoms. Woodland Druid, which had already been out which was coming out a couple years later, and Norwood Ranger, which was originally in Portal's Second Age by looks of things. Yeah, Portal's Second Age, but then managed to make it from there into 8th and 9th edition. Okay. Ashley, if you don't actually respond to anything I'm saying, I am going to ban you. Because I'm going to assume you're a spam bot. Yeah. Guys, well, people, if you're watching this, please be careful about individuals like this because there's a lot of spam bots that float around these networks, um, and they want you to be, they try to act like people, and then you find out, well, no, it's actually a machine behind it. Ashley's not responding. I think it's time for Ashley to meet the ban hammer. You've got 5 seconds, Ashley. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye. Spotted Griffin. 4 mana for a 2/3 flyer. You should, even at that point, you should have had probably a 2/4 flyer by then. 2/3 flying with some other ability, I could see, but this is Portal. You're not going to get 2/3 with some other ability. Heck, at that point, you were getting, like, you could still get a 3/3 with Trample for 4 mana back then. The only reason to play this is if you're playing Griffin Tribal. That's pretty much it. Knight Errant, 2/2 vanilla. For a half mana more, you're getting a 2/3 in Armored Warhorse. 1 white plus 1, you should get, Fleet-footed Monk, I would play 2,000 years before I played Knight Errant. You don't play this without a good reason. I would play a 1/3 before this. I would play a 3/1 before this. Because a 3/1 is going to hit for more damage and a 1/3 is going to be more defensive. And if you're looking at defensive, Wall of Omens 0/4 for 2 mana. That comes into play and draws a card. No, I do not see a good reason for playing Knight Errant. Vengeance. Vengeance is not a terrible card. It's not exciting, but it's 4 mana. 4 mana. Destroy target tapped creature. You can do better nowadays. But if you're rummaging through like your random jank and you come across this, at least look at it. At least consider the possibility of throwing it in your deck. Because somebody having a tapped creature in play, it makes it really easy to kill it. Now, you should be able to do that for like half the cost these days. But again, if you're building out of the random jank you got floating around at home, this is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. It's not as sexy as, Swords Plowshares or Path to Exile, which are like a third the cost and instant speed, but it also doesn't give your opponent another land. It also doesn't turn around and give your opponent a bunch of life. It also doesn't give, etc., etc. It just kill it. Okay. So it's an option. Also, rarely, there are times you're going to want to destroy rather than exile. things like you want to kill your own creature and then reanimate it later. It's a bad way of doing it, but it is a way of doing it. Venerable Monk. 3 mana for 2/2. When it enters, gain 2 life. This is fine. This is one of those things. This is one of those cards where, when you compare it to the Spiritual Guardian, you want to gain more life in one chunk, whereas the Venerable Monk, you are gaining a smaller amount of life, but faster. This is more like I want more instances of life gain rather than, again, going back to the idea of gaining 10 life. Does my deck prefer to have 2 instances of gain 5 life at a time, or 5 instances of gaining 2 life at a time? This follows more into the second camp. I just care that I gain life, I don't care how much it was. Versus, I want to gain a bunch of life. It's still a reasonable creature otherwise. Angelic Blessing, I like the art on this card, incidentally. What'd they do elsewhere? Okay. Largely using this version from Exodus, but no, I think I want this one. 3 mana, give +3/+3 and flying till end of turn is not bad. Let's be honest, +3/+3 and flying till end of turn for 3 mana is pretty good. It's this card's biggest drawback is when you can get a planeswalker who can use this as an ability. And it's a +1 ability. Yep. The original print didn't use emblems because emblems didn't exist yet. And then when they reprint it in the dual deck, they decided to introduce emblems. The original print just simply said, for the rest of the game, this happens. But yeah, Elspeth. Yeah, when you get Elspeth being able to use this as a +1, and she's a 4-drop, I think I would rather spend the extra mana and be able to use it every turn. But if you're just looking at random pump spells, and sometimes the fact that it's a sorcery is more relevant, yeah. Angelic Blessing, like I said, it's still fine. Alabaster Dragon. Alabaster Dragon feels a little bit like the progenitor to, well, there's cards like Progenitus and the first cycle of the Eldrazi Titans. There's also the Omens that came out in Tarkir Dragonstorm that, rather than, they're like normal sized card with a small section on the bottom that can be cast instead. But once you cast the small side, which is usually like an instant or sorcery, the last part of that resolving. Remember how I mentioned before the last part of a spell resolving is usually putting it, if it's an instant or sorcery, it goes to your graveyard. A card with Omen gets shuffled into your deck instead. This feels a little bit like the progenitor of that. That also explains why it's a 6 mana 4/4 with flying, which doesn't sound great, but it constantly keeps coming back because, sure, Wrath of God, I bring it back. You know, Damnation, I bring it back. What do you call it? Star of Extinction, I bring it back, etc., etc., etc. And just every turn you have one of these. It's like this will stop you from dying due to mill as long as you've got some way to make sure you can kill it. I might suggest if you're playing with that for that reason, you look into a card called Fanatical Devotion. I will point out that you choose targets before you pay costs. Fanatical Devotion means that you can target the Alabaster Dragon. You can choose the Alabaster Dragon as the target of the ability, sacrifice the dragon to pay the cost. It's going to fizzle, but it doesn't matter. You were able to successfully activate the ability and shuffle it back into your deck. So if you've got an effect like Fanatical Devotion, Ashnod's Altar or something similar also fits. It is going to be really hard for you to die a deck death as long as you can keep getting this guy into play in the first place. And, let's say, Quicksilver Amulet, for example. Allow you to drop the dragon into play without casting it. Quicksilver Amulet. Drop the dragon into play. Somebody tries to blow things up. Cool. Sacrifice this. It's going to be hard to make it. It's not impossible, but it's going to be hard. People are going to have to actually make you draw extra cards somehow. But just straight up, yeah, it'll work nice. Path of Peace. Destroy target. This was their take on Swords to Plowshares. Rather than giving a scaled number, they gave a fixed number. 4 mana, destroy target creature, its owner gains 4 life. This is a better card than Vengeance. Vengeance has a restriction on what can be targeted. It's the exact same cost. But then you get the 4 life question. In Commander, 4 life generally is not enough to worry about. You play Path of Peace before you play Vengeance. But again, what do you have convenient access to? Sacred Nectar. Don't. The amount of cards that there are that are better than Sacred Nectar, even at the exact same cost and same rarity. Let's see here. Mana value equal to mana colon 1. ID, no, color equal white. O colon gain, O colon life. Rarity equals rarity C. Game paper. Format EDH format type 1. Alright, so a Russian cleric, when it enters, you gain 3 life. But you get a 2 mana 1/3. Whereas Sacred Nectar, you're looking at gaining 4 life. Augural Vec, you get a 2 mana 1/3 with Shadows that you can sack on your upkeep to gain 4 life. Pardon me. Actually, you know what? Minus O colon gain 1. Minus O colon gain 2 life. Because 3 is starting to get... oh. Remove lifelink. There we go. Carrot Cake, You gain life equal to target creature's power. Okay. Divine Favor, really good for gaining life plus pumping one of your creatures. Last Breath. If you're looking for a common removal spell, maybe... no. Skip it. Lone Missionary, really good. Rest for the Weary. A, instant speed. B, if you've got land that entered this turn, you gain 8 life instead. Which means it kind of aiming for like gaining 6 life for 2 mana. Revitalize. Gain almost as much life and draw a card. At instant speed. Sanctify. Gain almost as much life and blow up an artifact or enchantment. Soothing Balm. Same cost. Instant. Target player gains 5 life. Why would you play Sacred Nectar when you can play Soothing Balm? Sun's Bounty. Again, instant, gain 4 life with Recover, which means when a creature dies, you can pay that cost. If you do, when one of your creatures die, you can pay, in this case, white +1. If you do, return the bounty to your hand. Otherwise, you will exile it from your graveyard. Temple Acolyte, 1/3, comes into play, gain 3 life, which is basically another print of the Russian Cleric. It's literally identical. Human Cleric versus Human Cleric. And White Sun's Passage. Soothing Balm that doesn't target. Why would you play Sacred Nectar when at the exact same cost, at the same rarity, you have all these other options available to you? Hell, Soul's Grace. You gain life equal to target creature's power. Choose the biggest creature on the board. It doesn't have to be yours. It just says target creature. Don't play Sacred Nectar unless you you have to dig deep down to be able to want to actually have an actual legitimate reason to play it. I mean, are you playing off of like esoteric artists? You know, Janine Johnson has only done 14 cards. Sort by color. 2 white, 3 blue, 1 black, 1 red, and 7 green. Incidentally, I kind of like her artwork. Like, especially Neltooth Jin. That guy is creepy. But yeah, don't play Sacred Nectar unless you've got an overriding reason. Armored Pegasus, you're looking at a white Stormcrow. When your comparison is to Stormcrow, and Stormcrow is ever so slightly better because it's blue. And why do I say that? There's the running joke that, blue cards are generally better because they pitch to Force of Will. Also a couple other things. Armored Pegasus doesn't have that. Although it does. It does nowadays. It now pitches to the White March. I forget what it's called. March of Otherworldly Sorrow or whatever it's called. And in Solitude. So it might be, the balance might be there nowadays. So this might be slightly better. That being said, if you're playing Pegasus Tribal, you might have to play it. Otherwise, would not recommend. False Peace. Huh. The funny thing about False Peace is the way it's worded now. Target player skips all combat phases of their next turn. Forcing somebody to not be able to attack is kind of silly. That being said, if you're doing that, you often want Stonehorn Dignitary and being able to flicker that thing around. When it enters, target opponent skips his or her next combat phase. You just flicker stuff. You just constantly flicker. Like, this had seen a fair amount of Pauper play for a few years. Just because being able to... Because there's not really extra combat spells or abilities in Pauper. So being able to turn around and tell somebody you can't attack next turn. They only have one combat step a turn. They might get double strike, but they're still only attacking once. And so flickering that turn after turn after turn after turn after turn is kind of a big deal. So imagine having that and Ephemerate and like Mnemonic Wall. And you just sit there and consistently blank combat steps every turn. And just, yeah, you just win at your leisure with things like, you eventually put something like Murmuring Mystic out. And because you keep casting Ephemera, you keep making more birds. Regal Unicorn, 3 mana, 2/3. Do you know that in, like, this came out in 97. Pearled Unicorn. Most recent print would have been 5th edition, which was in 1997. It was common. This was common printed later the same year, and was strictly better because it had one more point of toughness at the exact same cost. You play Unicorn Tribal, you play this, and you try to avoid playing Pearled Unicorn. Harsh Justice. Cast only during declare attackers and only few. So, oh, somebody's attacking you? Okay, before blockers are declared, I cast this. This turn, whenever an attacking creature deals combat damage to you, it deals that much damage to its controller. I need to make a note of this card. Actually, did I or did I not? You. Harsh Justice, huh? I did not put you in here. Know what? Sort. Do not group. And sort by name. Yeah, I didn't put you in. I'm sad. If you are doing something crazy like a mono white burn deck, play this card. Like, it is possible. I've constructed one myself. It is possible to build mono white burn. I have mine designed such that I end up taking a decent amount of damage as well because I'm running Darien King of Keldor as my general. And whenever I take damage, for each point of damage I take, I make a 1/1 soldier. I then have a few Soul Sisters, like Soul Warden and Suture Priest at Al, to turn around and gain life so I don't die from the excess damage that I'm taking. But Harsh Justice? You have Darien out? Cool. Can I afford the damage? Yes. I'm going to not block. Sure, I'm taking 27 damage. I'll make 27 tokens. I'll gain 27 life, so I'll gain it all back. Because I've got a Soul Sister out. But by the way, you're also taking 27. Yeah, you want to do crazy shenanigans and like you want to burn out your opponents? Like, especially if they're already at low life total? You just turn around and go, hey, by the way, you're dead now. Temporary Truce. Speaking of weird cards and weird colors to do weird things, here's a white card draw spell. I actually specifically got a copy of this for Commander because at some point I want to be able to go and I had Truce and I have Temporary Truce, and they're nearly identical. Temporary Truce. Nope. Temporary. There we go. Originally printed in Homelands. Each player may draw up to 2. So 1 white plus 2. Instant. Each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 a player draws this way, that player gains 2 life. Each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 a player draws this way, that player gains 2 life. Exact same wording. Temporary Truce is a 2 mana sorcery. Truce is a 3 mana instant. They are identical. The wording is identical. I wanted to have a deck. Oh. I could cheat with this. I mean, not literally cheat, but I could cheat with this. No. Nah, I don't think I could find a way to cheat with this. But yeah, if I'm one of the decks I'm building is non-blue control, and I may run Truce and Temporary Truce in that deck just as a way to draw extra cards. Um, but yeah, if you're looking for cards to do weird stuff, Truce and Temporary Truce, white card draw. Kind of a bit of the progenitor to Secret Rendezvous. Uh, 2 white plus 1, you and target player each draw 3 cards. The funny thing about that one is there's no option other than drawing cards. You put a card like that into something that is similar to, because it can't be the same because the color scheme is wrong, but a deck built around something like Nekazar, and people will hate you. Do you want to draw extra card? Oh my god. Imagine playing this against like the Goldfish crew. It's like Saffron Olive can't not draw cards. Uh Phil has trouble not drawing cards. Krim has trouble not drawing cards. You just they will take so much. Even Richard, I think the only one that might be able to hold back enough might be Tomer, and I'm not even sure about that. They all love drawing more cards. It is a real temptation. Even if there's something like Shieldred the Apocalypse on the board. Or, you know, whatchamacallit, from the Lord of the Rings set. That makes a orc army. I can't remember what it's called. Or like Underworld Dreams. Orcish Bowmasters. Anything like that. Cool, I could draw extra cards and it won't cost me anything? Well, I mean, it costs you life. Okay, start off with 40. You're down to 3. I will draw 1 card and take 4, but I will gain 2, so I take 2. So I'll go down to 1, right? I mean, that's a thing you can do. Blessed Reversal does not stop combat damage. But again, you have to play this before blockers are. Well, the original wording says you have to cast it before blockers are declared. But then when they reprinted it in Urza's Legacy, they got rid of the restriction. They just simplified it to gain 3 life for each creature attacking you. This was before the job of Oracle, because little history lesson here. Oracle is the, I'll say, database for convenience that Magic uses to take, here's a card, and here's a card. Here's the rule set under which it was printed. Here is the wording that we would use to say what this card does, maintaining as close to functionally accurate as possible to how it worked under its original rule set. It's like, well, why does the rule set make a difference? Because especially prior to 2000, the rules for the game changed. When I started playing during Revised, you had interrupts, and you had combat. When combat damage was, well, when any damage was dealt, it would be assigned, dealt, and then as the card, if it was from lethal damage, or if it was being destroyed by another means, you had, but we'll go with damage for convenience, and I say that for a reason. You had a moment as it was about to hit the graveyard to, at that point, to do damage prevention, or to regenerate it, to just at the last possible second to stop it from dying. That's not a thing anymore. The rules have changed since then. We eventually had, when 6th edition came out, we changed things so that combat damage used the stack to emulate that feel. People, the damage could be assigned, and then you respond to it by doing stuff that can prevent damage or whatever, and then it would be dealt. So it was as close with the modern rules and so forth as possible. It would be as close as possible to how things actually worked, given the updated rule set. During 5th edition, you had mana sources, which were like interrupts, but you couldn't. Interrupts you could respond to, mana sources you couldn't respond to. It was that short window between 5th and 6th edition where Dark Ritual was a spell that produced mana that you could not respond to. Stuff of that nature. So, cards printed under certain rule sets, you take a look at them, and a lot of cards would be pretty obvious. Like if it's a 4/4 flyer, it's a 4/4 flyer. It's going to pretty much work the same way, regardless. Like Air Elemental is going to work the same, pretty much regardless of whether you're looking at it being done in alpha or, this is now near the end of August of 2025. You're looking at Edge of Eternities. It pretty much works the exact same way. But some cards are a bit more complicated and require a bit more looking to see how it worked under that rule set. Oracle initially took a look at what is the intention of the, like it's always been what's the intention of this card? But the intention of the card has not always, like sometimes it's taken the rule set into consideration and sometimes it hasn't. Over the last, I would say, decade at least, maybe 20 years, it's taken the intention and the rule set into consideration. But before that, it just took the intention into consideration. Well, this is only, what, 1999 versus 1997. So 2 years difference. They took this card, and then when they reprinted it, technically under 6th edition, they just took this, updated the wording, gave it a new, gave it updated wording and new art, and went from there. Well, Oracle takes the most recent available printing and goes, what was the intention under that rule set? Urza's Legacy wins out because it's the most recent printing. Because 7th edition took the same thing. 8th edition took the same thing. The list just reprinted the Urza's Legacy. Son of a biscuit. So yeah, man. Ah, son of a biscuit. That's the wrong one. That's supposed to be that one. Pop out. I'm gonna have to finish white soon and go from there. Anyway, so yes, the rule set does make some difference. But Blessed Reversal, yeah, because of the Urza's Legacy printing, basically looking at the intention of the portal printing and going, let's just clean this up. For each attacking creature, you gain 3 life. Okay, that's fine. Who cares when during the combat step it actually matters? Nowadays, you can do that. I think you can actually do that at the end of combat now. Definitely you can do it during combat damage. You can definitely for sure doing it after blockers are declared. But I think you can get away with doing it during I think you can get away with it during what's the word I'm looking for? Wow, my brain is asleep right now. I apologize, people. You can definitely do this after blockers are declared. That is That is the earliest last time I know you can do it. I think you might be able to do it during combat damage, and you may be able to do it during end of combat. I know that creatures are still attacking. You know what? Let me just check this real quick. Uh, can you cast Blessed Reversal and successfully gain life from it during end of combat? Or are they no longer attacking you by then? That being said, it's real easy for this. Like, if you're being attacked by 2 creatures, you gain 6 life. If you're being attacked by 3, you're gaining 9 life. This is really incredibly easy to make. You know, I gain a bunch of life. Breath of Life, if you're playing mono white and you want to be able to bring stuff back, I figured that. I just wasn't sure if at that point. Cool. So yes, Blessed Reversal, you can cast that during end of combat. And you are going to see the occasional, sacrifice this at the end of combat, or exile this at the end of combat, or, like, for example, zombies that have got Disturb. What's his name? Jadar? Is that who I'm thinking of? Yeah. It can't block when it attacks sacrifice at the end of combat. Yeah. So at that point, well, at the end of combat, sacrifice it. So that's a triggered ability that goes on the stack, which means you can, that's the same time you can cast Blessed Reversal. Breath of Life, if you're building a reanimation style deck and you want to run white instead of black, there's a few reanimation cards that you can use in white. The biggest issue is getting the cards in your graveyard to begin with, but that's not as hard as it comes across. And Breath of Life, Breath of Life, Resurrection, False Defeat. If you're willing to go slightly higher, you can get Defy Death and similar effects. Refurbish if they're artifacts. There's quite a few 4 and 5 mana cards you can use to bring stuff back from the graveyard. You've also got brought back, which can bring back, I think, up to 2 cards that went to the graveyard that turn or something like that. Um, 2 permanent cards. Return them tapped. Okay. Which, hilariously, the funniest way to use brought back is you crack a fetch land, you get a plains. You crack a fetch land, you get a plains. You tap them both. You cast brought back. You grab the 2 fetch lands that you cracked, put them back into play. Sure, they come into play tapped, but you just ramped in a white deck. But yeah, and Wrath of God, cool. It's the end of turn. I cast brought back, and these 2 big creatures, let's say Ray of Dawnbringer and something else, come back, and it's like, well, crap. So yeah, Breath of Life. If you're doing a Reanimator style shenanigan, I wanted one of these days I'm gonna build a mono white Reanimator deck. In fact, I've kind of been toying with a white splashing blue Reanimator deck for modern. Never finished building it, but I've been working on it. With Resurrection and Refurbish to bring back Mirror Battlesphere and Inkwell Leviathan. Inkwell Leviathan? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Which is like a 7-level Trample Island Walk Shroud. And then Gift of Estates. If somebody's got more lands than you, tutor up 3 planes. Note it does not say the word basic. Also, oh my god, the Mystical Archive versions, I don't care which one it is, they are beautiful. This one I love. This one is cool AF. Like, how can you not like those? I'm a little less interested in the 9th edition version, which they also use for Commander and the list. But, yeah. Tutor up 3 planes, put them in your hand, then shuffle. Wah. Alright. I will be back momentarily. I am going to cross my fingers and give my computer a reboot and see if that fixes things. So, I will be back in a moment. Cross your fingers, people.